Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, boys and girls, welcome back to the No Bangers Sports Card Podcast. I do not know what episode number this is going to be. That is going to be a tricky one here.
Knows.
Nobody knows, so stay tuned
Before
for
the NFL draft,
right? We'll give you the episode number and the title. But I am joined by the illustrious host Rod, picking and punching cards, my guy Cary, American Arbitrage cards, and myself, Tim, over the years sports. And we are joined today by, I have come up with this nickname myself, okay? It is the Van Wilder of the hobby, because nobody knows college like this guy right here. We are joined today by the one and only Gabby Card Stacks. Has anybody ever called you Van Wilder of the hobby?
No, you're the first. So
I hope it sticks. I hope it sticks.
Probably the last, Tim. All right, first and probably the last.
No one's ever gonna adopt that.
Why don't you go ahead and tell the lovely people a little bit about yourself, where they can find you, and all that jazz for us?
Yeah, for sure. No, appreciate it, and appreciate y'all having me on. And so yeah, I'm Gabby Card Stacks, and I guess to the long form of my intro to cards, I started just like all of us as a kid. Really at the time had nothing valuable, just in general, I realized, but then came back in during the pandemic, and originally I actually started with baseball. I was a huge fantasy baseball guy and did that, and then got into Topps Chrome, and then just recently with all the NIL and Bowman and all that we'll talk about, got into kind of the college scene, and that's really been kind of my bread and butter. So that's kind of been what I've been focusing on the last 2 years, built up kind of YouTube, Gabby Card Stacks over the last few years as well, on Twitter, Instagram, all of that. So just enjoying the ride for sure.
Great follow on Twitter. So I've obviously been following you for a long time, but I'm a big fan of what you do on Twitter. I think there is so much valuable information in what he does on Twitter. So make sure you guys follow. If you're on Twitter, make sure you guys follow him on Twitter, because his Twitter is fantastic.
I'm a huge follow on IG. Every story that Gabe does. If you guys ever hear me on my channel talking about college cards, I probably mentioned Gabe's name like once a video, because I learned so much about it, and I'm so fascinated. And a lot of the follows on my Instagram now, like college sports wise, are because I learned from you, like who to follow, where to learn this news, and it's just if you guys aren't following Gabe everywhere, you guys should. It's fascinating, and he knows his stuff backwards, forwards.
I mean, he's literally dropping
YouTube as well all day,
every day. I mean, are you down to 5, 6, 7 drops a week now? I feel like there's like daily drops right now.
Yeah, no, for the longest time, I mean, that was the crazy. Like, I had one video blow up like 2 years ago, and it was just kind of like, I got to ride this thing out, and just got kind of this, video a day. I had just that much content to kind of post, and now, yeah, still been riding it out pretty consistent, 5, 6 at least for sure.
Yeah, guys, please give him a follow. I'm gonna actually put a link down in the description down below here to his YouTube channel. Go follow it, because it's worth its weight in gold. And I will tell you, if you're doing digging bargain boxes, he will make you a ton of money, all right, along the way. So highly recommend it through there. Now, normally this is part of the show where you jump into news, but this, you know what? You guys can get your news anywhere else this week, because I'm going to be completely honest with you.
There's something that happened, and we have an opinion about it, but we're not sharing it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that probably another time, but we have so much good information here. We don't want to waste any time. So we're going to start do a deep dive now. So I do have a general question for you. What is your background? Are you... Because I heard you talking to videos before. Did you work with some of the coaches before, or what is your actual background?
Yeah, good question. So I guess it started really kind of my college football journey really started taking off when I was in college. I actually started as a SB Nation, University of Arizona writer. And I always liked the recruiting scene. And at that time, there really was no one covering recruiting. And I would just always write, hey, Maurice Bell has taken a visit, and he said he's, been talking to these coaches. Here's his top 5, and here's his official visit schedule. And then one day, the coach, a couple of coaches DM me, and they're like, hey, thanks for the article. If you need anything from us, let us know. We'll get you our visit list and, kind of our board. So kind of started working with them. And then later on in college, they were like, you just want to kind of start working directly with us. So a lot of those coaches, and they've, obviously all left. That was 2016, 17. But I started working with them, and then I graduated undergrad accounting master's degree, did that for a couple years, and then kind of had an itch to coach high school football. So did that for a couple of years here on the local scene. And then kind of when cards and all of that just kind of became my true, like, that's how I want to spend my time. That's when I kind of went all in on that and put that to the side, but always kind of had that football background over the last 10 years or so.
Is McMillan the first wide receiver off the draft board?
Yeah, man, I've been saying that since last year. I just felt like, there's no one with his size, 6'5", 210, the way he can move his hands. Like I've always just felt pretty confident about that. And everyone was in love with Luther Burden a year ago. And I was true to McMillan and hope.
Where is,
although I guess there's Travis Hunter who, receiver corner, but he's just kind of athlete to me. So McMillan, I like label as the true number one.
where is Burden now? You think second round? I've heard stuff like that. Or
he's kind of sliding a little bit, and it's just interesting. Like there's a riser, Matthew Golden out of Texas, who's getting Leaf and Bowman in both years, and he's been shooting up boards. Top 20 they're saying. So yeah, it's kind of weird. Like you've got Mika Buka there as well, and then Luther. It's kind of take your pick, and so it'll be interesting to see. So he's kind of sliding, but could be up there. So
I just sold Luther Burden Sapphire selection out of 5.
you sold that already?
Yeah,
nice, man.
Yeah, sold.
No,
That.
what'd you get?
I sold
160
Oh, nice.
direct
Well done, dude.
direct sales, so like no fees or nothing like that. So he was a Missouri fan also, so
okay.
that was kind of.
I sold. I've been listening to Gabe. I sold a Matthew Golden Leaf last on Mercari 3 days ago. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Ja'Cory Brooks. What do you like? You like Ja'Cory Brooks out of Louisville?
Let's just start naming names. Let's go.
No, I what's interesting about Ja'Cory Brooks, and I went pretty heavy on him. Like he was Bryce Young's #1 target when he was a senior, and I think that was very undervalued. Had a down year the following year, then goes to Louisville and really turned it up. They had some injuries where it opened the door for him. So I do like him, and his prices are pretty reasonable and affordable if you want to make a dart throw.
Yeah, I gotta put you on to my my co-host. I do Authentic in the Beard. It's like we cover the NFC East, and he does work for Bleacher Report, covering the New York Giants. So he's doing like crazy draft stuff right now on Bleacher Report and Twitter. But I think I'll link you two together. I think you guys will like to follow each other for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, we mentioned earlier, Tim's throwing out all kind of names, all the prospects coming up here.
I get
Tim's excited, man. Tim's excited.
That's what this is all about. That's why we got him on. So let's do a deep dive here. I know you're really big into Bowman U. I mean, that's originally how I found you. I've been watching for the last 2 years on that. What do you look for? So you're starting the market and stuff like that. So let's do a deep dive. Walk us through your process with these prospects coming out, with the new products coming out. What are you looking for? What are you trying to establish to find, to get the value? Like we preach bargain box value on this show.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I definitely look for the value, and really it's just, I call it homework, where it's just, I'm looking at every mock draft and Twitter searching these guys' names and kind of seeing like, hey, are they a fan favorite, or, what's the media saying? What are the articles saying about them? So just a lot of homework, taking in as much information from all these different outlets and seeing, what everyone is saying, and then trying to kind of not maybe put them on a scale of in terms of price and value, but trying to see, all right, like this guy's getting second round, maybe first round buzz, and I don't think his prices are, that of a, first round pick right now. So that's, kind of, I think the first thing is looking at kind of undervalued, or guys who I think could shoot up with some hype. So really just trying to compile as much information as possible. And then when it comes to actually looking at cards, now it's an even bigger kind of value assessment, where it's like, Jackson Dart, his base auto first is $60-$70, but his base cards on ComC are like 60 cents. Like I'd rather throw $8 at all his base cards and piece those out for $3 a piece. And, I think that's way more value than an auto right now, or even looking at color. So then it comes to like, do I want the base low end? Do I want like the color? Do I think this, maybe his third year color is pretty cheap? So kind of evaluating all of that. But yeah, I'm taking in as much information as possible and trying to rank them against each other. And like, hey, I actually believe that, if this guy, a lot of it is team dependent as well. You go to a huge market and that definitely jumps up. but it's definitely a process of just filtering as much info, seeing where the prices are, and then from there choosing, parallels, autos, color autos, and going from there.
So me and Cary split a whole case of Bowman New Chrome, and we split that, and then I ended up going out and buying a box of Bowman New Best. So when the value between the two, I felt like I got more value in the Bowman New Chrome because you get a lot of the first Bowmans, you get a lot more. You get 24 packs versus 12 packs. I felt, even though I get 2 less autographs, I felt like there was so much more value for the price point I was actually getting. So out of all the products out there, me and Cary are huge Bowman fans. Tim loves Bowman too. But I mean, you have Leaf, you have Sage, you have Onyx.
Dude, I love Leaf.
Yeah, we'll do round robin. We'll start with you, Tim. What are you, when you're prospecting, what are you going after, Tim? Are you going after Bowman? Are you going after Leaf, Sage, Onyx?
Well,
where are you?
To be, it's and this is something I want to talk about too, is the comparisons between Bowman baseball and Bowman football. Because I think that there's a lot of parallels there, as far as not color parallels, but parallels as far as the value of the cards based upon the cards that they are. First Bowmans, non-first Bowmans, Bowman best, first Bowman, and stuff like that. But I think for me, I'll always, like when you look at Leaf and stuff like that, there's an opportunity to get some of the bigger names in Leaf at a lower cost point. And I think that that's important to have that option because, especially for collectors, because we talked about how like collectors are the people that are really doing a lot of the buying too, is because they want to collect these guys. And like a name like, like a Ryan Williams, and obviously not everybody's going to sign in both products because there's certain contracts and things like that. But like a guy like of his magnitude, right, where like his Bowman card is going to be super expensive autograph comparison to Leaf. So I think that having those options to be able to sell those cards to other people who can't necessarily afford or don't want to pay the price point of the licensed products, to have that option. I will tell you that I am really intrigued by the Onyx stuff. And I think that's how you say it, right? Is it Onyx?
Yeah.
Onyx.
And then they're doing other college sports too, right? Or are they just doing
Volleyball.
college football?
Yeah, they did volleyball.
Onyx.
And
Onyx is
Onyx,
doing, yeah.
Onyx, yeah.
Oh, Onyx is okay.
Onyx is doing other sports. They're
Okay.
they're similar. Onyx is doing volleyball. They're doing all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Gymnastics too, right? For LSU,
Yeah, I think they do gymnastics as well.
Because I think that that's kind of a market that is interesting, because I think the price point, and you don't see it a lot either. I think the price point is really good. You're going to get some parallels. There's autos in those boxes as well.
Some of the inserts, like the blackouts for on it, they can go for decent money too. And you can find that kind of stuff in bargain boxes or just affordably on eBay if you're paying attention.
So for me, like that's kind of what's intriguing me right now. But obviously, I think that the Bowman stuff is super fascinating because it's still in its infancy. As far as products being released, especially for football and stuff like that, because the first year, if I'm not mistaken, it was 21-22, right? Was the first year they started putting, and it was unlicensed then, right?
It was unlicensed on paper, and it was like your refractor was like a chrome card with a refractor finish, but it was still technically like a base card, but all paper, all unlicensed.
Yeah, so I think I have a pack of it right over here on my shelf, so maybe I'll open that one day soon. But that's where I'm at as far as products go. I think that it's important to have Leaf. Obviously, like, I'm very intrigued by the Bowman stuff. And even the Bowman stuff is still priced pretty reasonably as far as purchasing the product, especially in comparison to Bowman baseball, obviously. But the Onyx stuff to me is the most intriguing, and I do love the Leaf capability of getting the big name, low-numbered autos in comparison at a lower price point.
Gabe, what about you?
Yeah, so I stick to Bowman just from like I think the Bowman first logo carries significant weight, just like it would for baseball, and that's like I think the flagship product of college. But to Tim's point with Leaf, like there, and again, for me, it's always just a value assessment. Like I was buying Matthew Golden last week. I bought 3 Leaf autos for probably like $25, and his refractor auto from Bowman U is probably doing that. But I'm like, I think there's just more value, more room with the Leaf to grow with all the hype that's getting there. So
I also think Leaf is like a step ahead too. We're signing a lot of these players before Bowman and other people are. So Leaf
They're
is
getting
getting
high school guys.
market.
They're getting
Yeah,
guys who
high
aren't
school.
going till next year into the college ranks right now, as far as I know.
Yeah, I mean they're signing juniors in high school right now and going into their senior year. So they're definitely, I think over the last year have definitely leaned into that, which I love. I mean, I'll prospect anything. I like learning and researching and looking at their max prep. So I think it's a great direction. A lot of them are you would be shocked at how valuable some of these guys are. Like a Damon Williams, he's a freshman at UW. He's in his Basha high school jersey. His auto is probably $40-$50 and nobody probably knows about him, but he's got some star potential and that's his only card. So definitely opportunity there. And I think that again, with Leaf, they're early on signing these guys. That's their only card, unlicensed or not. It's going to have value if they're a good player. So always enjoy Leaf and the checklist and diving into that. And then Onyx is interesting as well right now. They just signed, their product just came out like a month ago or so. Yeah. And they just signed Bryce Underwood. He's the number one player in the country.
His stuff's going for over 200 right now.
Yeah, his autos are on Onyx. Over 200. And I didn't think he would sign, like when he first signed with Michigan, obviously they had $8 million offer to flip from LSU to Michigan. So he was a big game NIL player. And he had his own, he had his own NFTs and merch, and the NIL group had like $1,000 trading cards. And I thought he would I didn't think he'd be like, I'll sign for, however much they sign. I don't know if it's like $20-$30 an auto. So I didn't think he'd ever be in any product. I just thought he'd do his own lines of merch. So he's in it, and that's crazy. They also had Shedeur Sanders before he blew up. Yeah. I mean, back then those hobby boxes were like $60, and I remember preseason people were asking about Shedeur, and I'm like, like $30, that's pretty steep. And then they beat TCU, and that was doing $250, and that was his only auto. So license or not, I mean, if they ball out, the price and value is there for sure.
I also
feel like there's a lot of. Let me add this real quick, Rod. Like with Onyx, I feel like that's a product oftentimes a lot of people aren't educated on. I mean, they might be educated enough not to put a Bryce Underwood in a bargain box for sure, because he's a big time prospect. But there's a lot of guys that are going to seep through the cracks from an Onyx-like product that you can find in these bargain boxes. And even just some of the stars, I'm surprised. I'm looking at like some sold comps. I'm surprised at what they get. Like a 2024 Cam Ward, just base auto, $75. Drew Aller, $50. I mean, that's you would think it would be a lot less because it's not as desirable as Bowman, but I feel like those are cards. If you're at a card show, you might be able to pick up for $20-$25 because they just don't want to deal with Onyx. But there is some play there, some value.
The other products we haven't talked about is Sage and Prism. Because Sage is, I mean, for the value, what you get for $40 for a mega box, you get 5 autos in there. I mean, yes, there's a lot of lesser known players in there. I mean, the cards are kind of boring looking, but also too, it's still a fun rip to find some of those players. But Prism's doing something interesting where they're starting to sign a lot of exclusive deals as well, trying to compete with Topps. And they have Arch Manning.
Is he signing for Panini exclusively? Does he have an autograph? I don't think I've ever seen an Arch Manning autograph on any product.
He does have autos in the Prism set, and they just probably a couple weeks ago dropped Panini even has like a Panini NIL college tab, and he had autos. I think they were like $350 a piece or $250 a piece. And I guess I think it's print to order. So we'll see what that is.
And Raiola Instant. Raiola is exclusive to Panini, correct, Dylan?
Yep. Yeah, they've got Julian Sand, Arch Manning, and Dylan Raiola, who are probably the 3 youngest and hottest prospects right now. And Raiola, has at least 2 more years. Arch, who knows? I mean, he's already pegged as the number 1 pick for the time being. And Julian Sand, they're saying, is one of the best pure prospects they've ever seen, and is going to be a redshirt freshman, I think. So they've definitely done a lot of homework and probably spent a lot of money to get those guys. But those are the 3 guys that if you say, who are the guys you want for the future of the brand, probably your top 3 there.
With the NIL, so you mentioned about NIL money there, and one of the biggest things we're seeing a change in college sports now is players can stay. They don't have to leave to go feed their families. They don't have to leave to get paid, get the paper. They can stay now longer in college. And you're probably going to see a transition with some of the QBs too, where they're, before a lot of QBs would come out early in the NFL, didn't have a lot of experience and struggled, right in the very beginning. But say Bo Nix is an example. Bo Nix came in the NFL. You know, he had, you know, he was in there and he was in college football for 10 years or however long he was there. You know, it felt like he was there for 10 years. Right?
There at my man Bo Nix.
Yeah.
But you know, you're seeing a big change of that. So let's, you know, do a deep dive here about the NIL, how it's changed not only college football but card collecting along the way. Cary, start with you.
I mean, like the NIL. First off, like if you're not like a first or second or maybe third round quarterback, you're going to stick around. And like I think of my guy, I'm a University of Utah graduate. I think of my guy Cam Rising, who cannot stay healthy for the life of him. But he's been their quarterbacks, you know, for 7 years now, I think. And he might as well, I don't know if he's an NFL prospect at this point, but like he might as well stay. A lot of these mid-tier quarterbacks might as well stay for as long as they can because they're cashing checks and they're hired guns. They could, Cam could go over to, I don't know, James Madison or something, whoever wants to, get them. So they can stay around. And a lot of these guys can stay in college forever because they're getting paid. And they don't want to go and necessarily have to struggle in the NFL and maybe not even make a practice squad.
I don't know if this is true or not, but I thought I saw a stat the other day that said that the average quarterback in one of the big conferences is getting somewhere around $700,000 for NIL money per year. So why would you leave? I mean, what you're a big fish in a small pond. Why make that jump right there if you're making that type of money consistently and stay in college?
Or like, what was the guy, Carson Beck, 10 million? What is he making, Gabe? Miami?
Yeah, 8 to 10 million. Yeah.
Is that what they paid him? Wow, that's insane to me.
Well, isn't he dating one of the twin girls from University of Miami?
Yeah, that's why he's going there, because his girlfriend's in Miami.
So let me ask you real briefly, because obviously all this has changed, NIL, transfer portal, like I grew up in college football. It was like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Blue Chips, the basketball movie with my favorite basketball player of all time, Penny Hardaway. But like, it was like, like a under the table, like sort of thing. It's like everything's changing, right? So, and now you kind of have this mass effect on the value of cards where it's this immediate thing. And we use the word hype a lot. And I think it's more relevant in the college aspect of collecting cards than it is on the pro level. I think like hype really rides a lot on the line of the value of some of these cards. How much do you think of the face in the social media like plays in the role of value outside of the scouting aspect of these guys and performance aspect of these guys and girls? Because the reason why I brought this up is because of the twins at University of Miami. I found some value in both of their cards. One of the sisters is a lot better than the other. Haley, I think, is the better one of the two, if I'm not mistaken. But like, how much do you think that plays a role in the value of these cards?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's turned them into celebrities now, where it's like now it's just beyond the field and they're everywhere. And of course, as there's more media and content, that certainly helps as well. And they've turned themselves, I mean, they take all the courses of, how to brand themselves and be marketable. And, they're very much, on the superstar status and up and coming. And I mean, to your point, I think it is a lot of hype, beyond the draft. And what I like about college football specifically is that I feel like there's just a lot of, I guess, exit points, you could say, in terms of like, if you're buying, and that's something that I've learned over the years. Before I was like, I got to get out of all this by the draft, or like, I gotta, or else it's going to be losing value. But, with college football, you've got just the preseason general hype. I think rankings in terms of the games itself play a huge part, where it's like, hey, this is a top 15 matchup, and the matchup of the weekend, and that's going to be, big implications for the playoffs and conference standings. You've got the conference championship week, the playoffs now with 12 teams certainly expands, the amount of hype available. The Heisman Trophy itself, which I think just is iconic, where people remember who won the Heisman Trophy. Like if you say who won, the MVP in the NFL in 2006, you're like, you could pick from a handful and probably get it, but you're like, oh, Matt Leinart and all those guys, like, the Heisman Trophy winners. And then bowl games and big games itself. And then you get the draft, you get all the preseason buzz when they're at mini camp, and then you've got preseason games themselves. And now with the timing of product, that's sometimes their only card going into the season. So, just a lot like Bucky Irving was like the perfect example of just guys who, didn't have a whole lot of hype, but then turned it up in the season, and, his cards became pretty valuable. So I just think there's a lot of opportunity with college, and, I guess the prospecting isn't dead until, you got some time, I guess, when you're going through it.
Let me ask you this really quick, because like that was one of my big things I wanted to ask you was the timeline. So what do you think what are your top points of sale versus buy, right? So like, and at what point do you think that somebody's value is going to just not be the same ever again as far as their college uniform? Because what's interesting is we went through this whole phase in the hobby where people are like, oh, I don't want his rookie card because he's in his college uniform. Now we're all going crazy for kids in their college uniforms, and it's like this double standard. So at what points do you find to be obviously the best buys for sell points through that timeline that you kind of opportunity that you just described?
The product, the NFL product too, also doesn't drop until later on in the season.
That was a great point, because I mean, you're just now getting Prism and the season's over. You know what I'm saying?
We're getting so.
Yeah, and Optic isn't coming out for another couple months, and that's probably product number 2 in terms of what people want. So, in terms of when to sell or what my thoughts are, and it's interesting just because like players have a crazy cycle. I think of Jackson Dart. I went super heavy on him all off season. I just thought Ole Miss was a good college football playoff bet, and I think I sold 90% of my inventory after like week 1 or week 2. I think he had like 6 touchdowns against like Furman or somebody, and he just lit it up. And then, things started getting bad, and I thought the rest of my stuff was not going to sell. And then, suddenly he has a great bowl game, and now he's shot back up, and people are saying, hey, he's QB3, maybe QB2. So another instance where like I was kind of willing to rip the Band-Aid and sell at a loss on some of the rest of it. And I just kind of held on. I was like, I'll just wait for the draft. And lo and behold, it happened. But I think, selling for the preseason and kind of the first few weeks and seeing, all right, who's going to start the season 4-0 and in the top 10, I think that's a good opportunity to, I guess, just get out of any sort of risk at that point. Especially you can kind of look at schedules and see like, I think this thing, they've got a big matchup week 1, and then they can kind of get into a 6-0 position. And then I think that's kind of, where I feel good about getting out. And then, of course, kind of Heisman, it's kind of a horse race there where you're trying to see who's, 1 and 2 and 3 in that. And those prices kind of start to climb. So you're, maybe trying to test the waters there. Really, I don't know. Just once you get so many cycles and cards and, inventory, you kind of know, like, would I pay this much for this card right now? And that's kind of what I tell myself. I'm like, I would not pay $85 right now for a base Cam Moore, like an Onyx or whatever. That's when I know I should sell it. Like I would not get back in, or I don't
that's a good point.
For more letting go. So that's what I tell myself. And then the draft as well is the other big point.
We're in a fascinating time right now. Like I feel like, Gabe, you're on the cutting edge of this, talking about breaking down like the college season, when you think of selling, when to not even be buying, to be selling, and all that. But historically, I think of being somebody who's flipped cards for a while and collecting. We had a Sage come out historically in 2010, let's say. Sage came out, and then we had 1 or 2 months before Score rookies would come out. Like, I didn't even learn about these college guys 10, 15 years ago until Sage came out, and I didn't know who anybody was. And then that's why I think historically people didn't like college uniform stuff, because it was a couple months, and then that stuff was worthless because the NFL stuff comes out with these rookies. Now you got people like you talk about Jared Curtis, who's a high schooler. He's going to have, 4 years of cards before he ever gets an NFL rookie. Maybe 3, maybe 5. I don't know. So he has stuff coming out in Leaf right now. He'll have Bowman first products. He'll have probably second-year Bowman stuff, kind of like a Jackson Dart has. Although there's just going to be so many opportunities to sell these people along the way. Jared Curtis, for example, as soon as he determines where he's going to go to college, could be a time to sell. Once he, has a hot off season or something, a good workout or something, where he's moving up the chart to second quarterback or starting or whatever, there's going to be so many opportunities to sell these guys when these opportunities didn't even exist before, because you just got Sage cards, and then they were NFL rookies, and that was it. That was the whole cycle. It's changed a lot.
And that thing's going to keep evolving and changing over the next. It's not done. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot more changes in the industry because aren't they going to be putting a cap on NIL money too very soon? Did I read that someplace?
Yeah,
they're trying to work out like a GM, like a salary cap, and their colleges are hiring GMs now, right?
Yeah, it's crazy how like a lot of roles that weren't even there 5 years ago, where it's like you've got player personnel and operations and all of that, and now you're getting Andrew Luck is the GM at Stanford now, and it's like he's playing a huge role in the scouting and development, and even like high school relations officer is like a role now at the college level, and building those relationships with high schools to get that recruiting pipeline. So yeah, crazy what it's become and what it can turn into over the next few years as we navigate this water.
Well, you mentioned earlier about the NFL draft coming up. NFL drafts are right around the corner. So I would like to, hear everyone's strategy here going in the NFL draft. Because like for me, I'm thinking about starting a list of a bunch of my Bowman cards, getting them all ready as drafts. On draft day, as they get drafted, boom, put the NFL team in there, pop them up there. And I was thinking about doing little mini lots the day of the actual draft. But what is your guys' strategies? I mean, Cary, you have a lot of Bowman. Or do you have any strategy coming up right now with the NFL draft around the corner?
Well, as far as selling right now, I'm going to list some stuff as I hear, when combine happens, when somebody goes crazy, does a record-breaking performance, I would list those. But a lot of the stuff and a lot of my strategy now is based around live selling. So the week of the draft, the week of the combine, when something hot goes on, unless I have something amazing, I'm going to be running singles. And I'm talking not just autos and shiny stuff, singles, like just base Bowman first cards through Diptych cards and whatnot. And we're gonna let it ride. I got, I opened 8 boxes or 6. I don't know how many we divvied up in our case. And I've opened who knows how many blaster boxes. Every time I find them, I pretty much get one. So I'm gonna get them out by the time the week of the draft, and then I don't want to have much left over. At that point, I'm going to be looking into other stuff once the draft happens.
I think the combine is important. Like, think about it, like a guy like Xavier Worthy, right? He's had a roller coaster from college to what he just did in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, the guy goes out there and crushes in the 40-yard dash.
He went like a 4.25.
It was the record. And then like the draft day happens, and I think this is interesting too. And I think this is something we're going to talk about as far as schools carrying a little bit more weight than other schools, right? So think about a guy like him falling and the Buffalo Bills trading out of that spot so the Chiefs can draft Xavier Worthy. So you're basically instantly putting into people's minds, this is Tyreek Hill 2.0. He just got drafted to the Chiefs, right? Boom. That's automatically going to help the value of his card. And I was a big Keon Coleman guy, so I think that Keon Coleman going, from Florida State to Buffalo, is a good fit for him. And I think he showed potential this season too. But I think the combine is super important because it's so much. It's always been a big deal, right? But now it's a whole nother level. You know what I'm saying? The combine warriors and gladiators that people get crowned and oh my God, the 40 time, the shuttle time. You know what I'm saying? The vertical, the size of their hands.
I can only imagine having Bowman U cards as somebody like Vernon Golston back in whatever year it was, 08, 09, when he went off, or some of these dudes who were completely dominated the combines. If they had Bowman U cards or Lee or whatever they would have had at that time, if they would have had cards, they would have blown up.
Because
like
it's
anything else in any other sport.
This is an interesting thing to think about. Smaller school guys, right? Because there are some smaller school guys that have cards in Bowman U, right? It's not all power conferences that have cards in Bowman U, right? And so a lot of those guys, unless you're a college football junkie like we are, you know what I'm saying? You don't know these guys, right? And then you go to the combine. That's their first opportunity to get some national spotlight outside of the social media rankings and stuff like that. So that's why another reason that's kind of good to kind of have an opportunity to move some of those smaller school cards of these guys who jump up the boards during obviously Senior Bowl 2, the Shrine Bowl. Like, those are very big opportunities for some of these smaller guys, and non-offensive position player guys as well.
Gabe, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, to Tim's point, it's interesting when again, going back to the research, I'm thinking, all right, let me look up every article that's like top 10 risers of the combine. And now I'm going into, eBay and all these outlets to see, all right, like what's still kind of priced where it was, like before the combine. And, now there's some hype and they're moving up boards. So combine, certainly a good opportunity. And like Tim said, with Xavier Worthy, like that, again, for me, I went heavy on Xavier Worthy, and then I kind of thought it was dead in the water at the end of the season, sold off. And then, of course, he goes nuclear at the combine, then goes to Kansas City, and then balls out in week 1. Like, he had 3 tremendous spikes, to start his NFL trajectory. And then going to kind of the small schools as well. I think there is a lot of opportunity with those guys where it's like, typically those aren't, smaller school, smaller fan base perhaps, but not going for huge dollar amounts and slipping through the cracks. And then, as you climb through, like I think of, Seth Hennigan, the Memphis quarterback, 4-year starter, and people are like, he kind of gives me Brock Purdy vibes. And it's like, I think, the hobby kind of chases, the next Brock Purdy and the next like shiny Anthony Richardson offseason type deal. So it's like finding those types of gems. And going back to kind of like Sage, I think does a good job getting a lot of those small school guys. They had a ton of South Dakota State and North Dakota guys, and kind of those unknown.
They're great programs, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Great program.
And they're signing, and like you said, it's like $120 for a hobby box. And you're getting 20 autos at $5 an auto. Definitely worth a shot when you can get the Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, all those QBs as well.
A lot of people clown on that Sage stuff, but that oftentimes is the refuge for these guys that end up being complete, unknowns that break out. You go look on eBay, you're like, oh, does this dude even have a card? Sage, and now it may be Leaf, it may be Onyx as well, but it serves a purpose. And I always say this, if you're buying Sage, I love to open it up, put all those autos in a box, put them in a top loader. You never know. One of those dudes might pan out and be a stud and have no other cards.
What about Nick Nash, San Jose State?
I don't know I don't think he's in product, but I would be like, I checked the Sage checklist very briefly, but like he would be in that product for sure. And I think there's even more. I think Leaf's next big drop for like their 2025 set is April. So hopefully, they were able to get a lot of good new autographs there. Because that would be a sneaky. I mean, he was a Triple Crown for college football. So another guy where it's like, hey, if he goes off in the combine or in preseason, goes 7 for 120 and a touchdown, I mean, his prices are going to go to the moon at that point, and people are thinking Puka Nacua, so certainly.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you were selling off your stuff before the draft. So do you carry any product into the actual NFL season?
Yeah, now because of just kind of what I've learned over the years, like I'm not scared to at that point. Like before, like the one that hurt the most was like Dorian Thompson-Robinson was like my first big 2022. I'm like, dude, I loved watching him at UCLA. Super fun player to watch. And whatever didn't sell, I was like, all right, I'm just going to sell like after the draft and just fire sale it. Goes off in the Hall of Fame game. And I mean, like his gold autos were doing hundreds at that point. So that was kind of like my first like lesson. And then Xavier Worthy as well. I'm like, okay, like you can hold into the combine and wait until the preseason and, all these rookie mini camp reports like, hey, he's running with the ones and, looking like Tyreek Hill again. So I'm not, I guess, as trigger happy to be like, all right, like I didn't sell it. Like, I just want to get rid of it. Like now I'm like, all right, like still because of the timing with Prism coming out, after the league year almost, I'm kind of okay with holding it. And then now I'd be like, all right, like, probably fire sale it off if it hasn't moved at this point, but I'm definitely not as hesitant to hold and just be like, all right, like there's not a lot of product. And I guess it becomes kind of a scale thing, right? When people have their score rookie, in their, I mean, that's still even college jersey with the pro logo. So do people, value the Bowman first over that? So lot of different I guess Don Russ is probably the first set that kind of is the first new shiny thing for people. But yeah, I'm definitely not as hesitant, where before it was like, okay, I hope I sell out before the season. Then I was like, now, I'm okay holding to the draft. Now I'm kind of okay holding into the summer. And then preseason is huge. Like Joe Milton last year went nuclear as well. So it's like, there's always kind of an exit point, throughout the season with a lot of these cards.
Nice. Cary, you're talking earlier about the teams. So, one thing that me and Cary were talking, debating one day is about what teams are selling best. So when it comes down, I know Georgia does really well for me. I do Alabama stuff has done well, but through the product, when you are going through bargain boxes, why don't you give the viewers some tips here about kind of what you're looking for team wise? Because I do feel like teams do have a big impact on the 100%. Market, and will bring.
I'll say one, and a lot of people know this, but I'll say one that's big that people may not necessarily think off the rip is Iowa. Iowa's always, is a school that always does well for me. I oftentimes like I said, we're just giving our best opinions here. Nobody really knows 100% where any of these cards are going to go at any point. But I've had good luck with Iowa, even like Iowa State. I like to think of states that don't have pro teams. So you could that could be a plethora of different states. It could be a Montana, Utah, BYU. I'm from Utah. We don't have a pro football team, so Utah and BYU stuff's going to be pretty hot there. We don't have anything else to really go off of. So, but Iowa's one that comes to mind outside of the obvious, like the Longhorns. Ohio State's always huge. Michigan's popular. The Florida teams, Florida State. But yeah, Iowa's the one. Yeah, I think of like Cooper DeJean, Caitlin Clark, Sam Laporta. There's a lot of guys to come out of those schools that have a massive following, in Des Moines.
Well, there's the best college football team in the world.
I'd like to.
Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, Notre Dame.
Throw
Notre
that
Dame
out there, just in case anybody forgot to go Irish.
I'd love to hear I'd love to hear from Gabe. Like, are there some other schools you've noticed through doing this for years that we might overlook that seem to have like a good following of collectors?
Yeah. So my sneakier thoughts, and you nailed them. Iowa for sure. And then Iowa State, I think, is also a very solid team. And then honestly, one that I guess my little sneaky sleeper would be West Virginia. Not like your huge Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, all those, but you look at just the guys that they've had in the Bowman checklist, not the best names, but somehow they're like priced like mid to high-ish tier. And those fans just kind of keep it afloat and buy it up. You go back to like the Tavon Austin, Steve Slate. Like, I always want to get one for my PC, and it's like, I'm just, $40 for like a 2006 Sage out. I'm like, that's tough. So I'll wait on that. But like, I think they just buy it up and really maintain the prices. And I've had a lot of success with just some of the recent stuff. And then looking back at kind of some of those glory year guys, like they're pretty, I guess, up there in price compared to what you would expect.
I'll give you one name, one of the best athletes I've ever seen play. One of the first people I remember having an internet hype video. Played at West Virginia, played running back. Who am I talking about? Anybody know?
You're talking about Pat White, but that was a
nope.
Quarterback, right?
Noel Devine.
Oh,
that's a lasting pass.
If you ever get a chance, go just look at Noel Devine's high school. It's kind of tough to watch because it was a while ago, but the Noel Devine high school highlights, bro, on YouTube, if you can find them, absolutely insane. That dude was so good. It's crazy. So if you can find, I don't even know if he has a card out, but he's like he has like a cult following.
He has stage stuff, I think.
He does? He was so
good. I'm curious now.
It's funny that you said West Virginia because I just sold the Garrett Green Gold Shimmer actually yesterday or 2 days ago autograph. So I pulled that from a pack, and then the quarterback from West Virginia there. So, but yeah, West Virginia stuff has actually sold well for me in the past. Every time I've got it, it usually sells pretty fast too.
What about Marshall?
2011 SP
2011?
Authentic Autos.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What about Marshall?
Interesting.
Marshall, I
Pennington, baby Pennington.
Yeah, so I beyond Pennington in terms of like other, like I guess Randy Moss would be, I don't know who else would have cards out of that. And I don't know the Randy Moss market, but Pennington, it was probably one of the stinkier names in the checklist. I think he just transferred to like a Division II school. But it is cool that they had him, and makes everyone feel old when they're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Wait.
So,
I'm-
do you think that has any merit? Like guys who have college cards who have names, because there's a few out there. You know, there's a Gabbert also. You know, also
Yeah.
plays quarterback. So, like, do you
Frank
think
Gore
that
Jr.?
carries any weight? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Gates
Especially
Jr.?
like, yeah, with like a Frank Gore Jr. There's a ton of, I don't know, like hype around like Larry Fitzgerald's son, and so I think Roman Harper's son play on the same high school football team. Rajah Bell's kid is like a 5-star quarterback signed with Texas now. So I think like some of those like bigger names will definitely kind of carry some weight when it comes to, you know, hey, the lineage and who they are, and maybe even like the prospecting. Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's son, definitely getting some hype in the NFL draft right now. So yeah, I think a lot of those lineages will definitely kind of bump up their markets a little bit and be like, oh, okay, maybe, you know, maybe you bank on those genes a little bit. And
Isn't Mason projected to be like top 10?
So Mason is probably about top 50. I would say he's a tight end at LSU. But probably like flirting tight end 2, 3 behind Tyler Warren.
I might be getting him mixed up with a different guy, but
Well, speaking about draft, why don't you give us a breakdown, Gabe, of some of the key players or key things you see that have the most value right now with the NFL draft right around the corner? Did you have maybe a list you could pop off the top of your head for us? So viewers get some value, stuff to look for?
Yes. So I mean, in terms of players itself, quarterbacks, they're kind of sorting themselves out right now, and we'll see what happens. Like just a lot of the offseason debate, like who's after Shadur, and like Will Howard was getting a ton of hype, and could be a serious top 50 pick. Dylan Gabriel, I think, is a little. I kind of believe in him. I like him. He's a little lefty, and I just think he's got something. Started like six. I think he started the most games in his college career in history, like 63 starts. So quarterback's interesting. Another little sleeper or big sleeper, I guess, would be Curtis Rourke. He's Indiana's quarterback, 6'5", 240. Just feel like he's mobile, got the rocket arm. Everyone's trying to chase the Josh Allen, comps there. So that's interesting. Running back is kind of the Wild West. There's probably 30 deep of like undrafted guys who, like, some teams are going to get some steals, and you could really rank, outside of Ashton Jeanty and maybe Omarion Hampton, you could rank probably 3 to 15, and no one would argue like, oh, you got Taj Brooks at 4, like, yeah, okay, and then Caleb Johnson at Caleb Johnson at 7. So it's kind of a Wild West crapshoot. You could really, it's going to be some dart throws there. Like Ollie Gordon, I think, is kind of in an interesting spot. I just think whatever team drafts, like if the Steelers draft him, they're like, oh, look at his 2023 season, and everyone just kind of points to that, and then of course it depends on what team, like the Jets were interesting last year. They drafted 2 running backs after they just had Israel Anaconda, and they had Breece Hall there already. So it was like, you drafted Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, late, and like that kind of landlocks them. But then you get other guys where it's like, oh, this is like, he could walk in, like whoever Dallas gets, if they go Jeanty or if they wait in the second round, is going to go berserk. So running back is a Wild West. And then receivers will be interesting. There's a lot of, after McMillan, then you kind of pick a couple of guys. Like there's a lot of good sleepers there. Matthew Golden's rising, but then like Savion Williams is a guy that I love. He's like 6 foot. People are saying like a Debo type guy, 6'5", like 210. You just put the ball in his hands.
TCU, right?
Yeah, TCU. Luther Burden is another one of those guys where like, hey, just get the ball in space to him, and we'll see what happens. We'll see where he kind of goes. Pat Bryant out of Illinois is in Leaf, in Bowman. He's got a pretty decent market. So a lot of guys just that you could just look at, top 20 lists at each position to go after. And then in terms of like what I've found to be successful during the draft is honestly more of the low end, like color and then base autos. Something that I learned like over the few years before, I was like, oh, let me get gold autos. Like gold is the color of the hobby and kind of like more desirable. But last year I found that all my base autos sold faster in my low end color, which I get from a fan perspective is like, nobody wants, or not a lot of fans will want to buy a $50 gold Dallas Turner auto and make that investment on, that night. but they're fine with the $10 base auto that, I picked up for $5 and just want a piece for their collection. Or maybe they're buying one card of every player that gets drafted, and, they're going to spend $40 that weekend and, hey, I'll buy a purple shimmer of this guy and a nice color match blue of this guy. So the lower end 20 and under has been, I think, definitely, and inserts as well. Like Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy early riser inserts were doing like $7 at the time. And it's like, you can find those in dollar bins, 50-cent bins all throughout the season. So definitely, I think the lower end of a lot of guys. So get, a lot more flexible for the wallet and gets you a lot more dart throws for sure. When you're kind of going through, I don't think you need to specifically target guys. It's just, hey, look at some mock drafts, look at these rankings, watch some highlights, see who you believe in, and then maybe try to, after the draft as well, when you're going through bargain box and be like, hey, this guy just got drafted by Dallas or Kansas City or Buffalo, and his prices could probably go up because of that. So after the draft as well, knowing where guys went drafted and what markets would also be key for sure.
I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially in the NFL, because Roger Goodell has already come out and said that it's not if we're going to go to 18 games, it's when we're going to go to 18 games. They're talking about already getting rid of one of the preseason games, going to an 18-game schedule, pushing it back one extra week so that the Super Bowl would end on, was it President's Day weekend?
President's Day,
yeah. So which would be perfect. Everyone have off on Monday and stuff like that. But you just gave a huge list of QBs and running backs. And I just want to add, I think there's so much value. I mean, I know me and Cary, when we're at the show together, we're digging through, looking for QBs, backup QBs, and I'm also picking up backup running backs a lot. But I think there's a lot of value with the college football cards to pick up, because they're not going to have a lot of pro cards. Some of these guys are second or third round, because look what happened to the Niners this year. I mean, McCaffrey went down. I mean, then
Jordan Mason.
Yeah, then he went down, and then they were the third and fourth string. So I think there's a lot of value picking these up for quarter 50 cents when you can, and just stick them away for the NFL season, because
I also love. And I don't know if you do this, Gabe. I don't think you do, but I also will pick up defensive studs. If you pick up a Xavier Watts from Notre Dame or something, you find an auto of Leaf and you're getting it for, you can find those cheap in a bargain box. And I love to pick those guys up, especially from big colleges or popular colleges, I can imagine. One guy that wasn't cheap and is probably going up as we speak, Cooper DeJean. Because Iowa, when you were looking for his stuff last year, his stuff was pricey even then. But I love picking up the right defensive player, because in the bargain boxes, in my case, which is where I spend most of my time, you can find them inexpensively. And you can get good people. I still, to this day, pick up Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith cards inexpensively.
Yeah.
Autos. All the time. And they're studs.
Well, Cary, when you're out, is there any lineman cards that you pick up, or you just strictly?
I'll pick up. I've been picking up Olu Fashanu. I mean, he was a top 10 guy. I'm not sure if it was the smartest thing I've ever done, but I can find his stuff for a couple bucks. I loaded up on Joe Alt is actually a great one. I can't really find him inexpensively.
Where did he go to school?
He went to Notre Dame.
Thank you.
Notre Dame. But I mean, there's some guys that are overlooked that are studs. Joe Alt's a stud. I don't know about Fashanu, but Alt is a stud.
What about you? I mean, is there how about what he was just talking about on the reverse side of things? Linemen. I mean, is there any value
Kickers,
there in cards, kickers,
stuff like that? Yeah.
Outside the skill positions.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it helps because a lot of those guys aren't in everyday product. So it's Tim, I know you're talking about Evan McPherson in one of the early episodes where it's his mosaic orange reactive was one of his best cards. So, picking up those defensive guys and special teamers, I do, find it interesting at they were obviously good enough for in the conversation to be in the checklist. And I would say, a lot of the true collectors, and especially some of the smaller schools, I'll take anybody out of the obviously I wish this player was in there, but having one of those top defensive guys out of the very first Bowman set, the 2021 set, one of my best sellers was, I'm blanking on his name, the safety, Kyle Hamilton. From Notre Dame. There you go.
I love you,
dude.
Man.
I've killed with Kyle Hamilton, and I find Kyle Hamilton in bargain box. He's like a 2-time Pro Bowler, I think, at this point, All Pro, I think, and I find him in bargain boxes still, autos, and his stuff sells well.
Yeah.
Still not healed, Tim. I'm still not healed from the Penn State loss in Notre Dame. All right. So, but all right. So in your videos, you do a lot of sourcing online. I know Tim, and Cary are go in person. I know I watch you go to a couple card shows, stuff like that. But a lot of the things I am watching is mail calls. So kind of give some people tips about buying online, what to look for, because we did a deep dive one episode about how to buy cards or where to buy cards. But I mean, from when it comes to the college football and how you do it, why don't you explain maybe some tips about what you do, sites that you like to go through? Because I know you have your own Discord. I know you're on Twitter. We don't talk about Twitter in here a lot, except for Tim. Tim's actually our resident Twitter or X
Twitter
now.
expert.
So, yeah.
X expert.
Yeah, X expert. But
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, one of the first places that I go is ComC. I just love the platform where it's like to not have to wait for shipping, potentially deal with some issues on the cards that I couldn't see in the photo, relist or take the photo, relist, and then wait for it to sell and ship it and all of that. I check ComC just for like the ease of it. Like, all right, maybe something just slipped through the cracks and that's where I go. And whatever player I'm looking for at the time, I'll just, spot check a bunch of names. That with the app, you can save searches. So it'll let you know when a new card pops up. So I like ComC, just the ease of flipping, and, you can really buy 50-cent cards and just relist them for $1 and, not even think about it. And so that's definitely one of my favorite places. And then eBay, that's when I'll be a little bit more intentional with like what I'm looking for with like autos or color of some of the bigger names, or maybe just buying, one of the biggest hacks I think is, going on eBay and buying from these auction houses and combining your shipping. Sometimes you're getting like $6 cards for like $1 or $2 because of the shipping, and they cap it at, $10, and that's an easy way to source a lot of stuff there. So I really like that. And when I'm kind of debating on what card I should buy, there's all these different sets and, what should I buy? What's a good value? A website that I use, and I don't know if you guys are familiar, maybe, but watchcount.com. I love that website. So you can type in a player and, let's say Garrett Nussmeier Bowman, and you can make all these filters, buy it now, under $100, over $6, and it'll say how many watchers are on. It'll rank all the cards. Like this card has 24 watchers. This one has 22, 21, 18. So you can see what are the most watched cards of that specific player. So like sometimes when I'm like, there's 32 watchers on this, I'm just going to buy it. Like I know there's interest. Maybe it's a little over comps and that's why people aren't buying it. And maybe people just want to watch it just to watch it. But I love using that site. And it's like, all right, I want to make a play on this guy. I don't know what card is most desirable. I'm like, hey, this base auto is $7 with 9 watchers. I'm just going to buy it. And so that has been, one of my biggest tools, I think, to really see what are people watching or interested in, and kind of source from there. And then I'll even go deeper in the bag with like a Mercari or Collects or buysportscards.com has been kind of another sneaky one with like when you want to buy a base of a guy. Like I bought 28, 30 Jackson Dart base cards for like 20 cents a piece a while ago, and just holding on to those. And then sportlots.com, another good one as well, where you're like, hey, if you can just find some bulk of a guy that you believe in, or if you can buy 40 base cards at 20 cents, I'm in on that for sure.
Interesting. So let's go back to the watch list.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking for the top cards there? Are you looking for something in the middle ground? I mean, what is the thought process that goes into that? Because I mean, when you go on there, I've used it before. There's a lot of new. You can do a really deep dive into that.
You ain't never tell me about this before. How you gonna use it and tell me? It's the first time I'm hearing about it. It's from him.
I thought you watched his videos, man. I learned it from watching his videos. So, but no, I mean,
gotta get on your game, Tim.
Yeah. So
I feel like an idiot. I'm like, these guys are talking about watch count. I'm over here writing it down on my notebook now.
Yeah, but it adds a lot of value because you can see and you can use it for other things as well. So
yeah.
But going back to the question, then, I mean, when you're looking at, are you looking for something middle ground? Are you looking for just the value with a lot of watches on it? Like, what is your thought process that goes in? Because when sometimes I go on, you see these cards that are super high that have a lot of watches on, because people are also watching that card in that market to see what that card does.
Yeah.
So, so that's a little something people need to consider, is just because there's a ton of watches on it doesn't mean that's the top card to buy. So you want to go down the list and take a look at the other cards on that list to do more of an in-depth search of kind of what you're picking out.
Yeah, for sure. And some people are just interested. It's a huge card for at $500 with 80 watchers. Like just people are just wanting to watch it. But yeah, I mean, I'll look at let's say it's a color auto out of 75. I'm just going to use Garrett Nussmeier as an example because that's who I kind of use it the most for right now. Quarterback at LSU. Let's say there's a Bowman Best auto at $70 with like 13 watchers. And I think this is like the exact situation for the card that I bought. And then like his base auto is like base Bowman First auto is like $60. And that's got like sales at about 55 to 60. And that's kind of the next one. I'm just going to go up and buy the color match colors to 75 for a little bit more. It's the most watched card. And I just feel like scarcity over time would also kind of carry me. I can relist that one, maybe over $100 there. I really use it for a lot of the $50 to $100 range because that's when I need like a little bit more, maybe not confirmation, but just more data to be like, all right, this is watched and based on base auto comps or other sorts of comps of that card or similar players. I'm like, I feel good with the amount of watchers here. I think there's interest and just kind of where I project the hype with someone like him. He's the number one betting favorite for the Heisman right now. He kind of had first round grades into the 2024 season and was like, maybe he's a first rounder if he declares this year. So I just think to me, he's like the Carson Beck of last year where he was just the number one guy and, all eyes on him, Georgia to win the national championship. So that's when, 50 to 100, when I'm unsure of kind of what play to make, I'll use that and kind of base it off comps, watchers, all that. And
I like the price point on that. I think that's a great point because with that certain price range, it allows you to do a little bit more because you're investing more than what you normally do. You're most of the time you're in the bargain box like we do, where we're just buying off our gut feeling, or we don't have time to look up every single card. And if you make a bad buy, it's you're losing $1 or $2, not a big deal, in comparison to their card. But I know Cary had some questions too for you. But go ahead.
What is your percentage breakdown of acquiring cards between ripping, breaks, card show, and online?
Yeah, that I would say ripping. I only really rip Bowman U, and that's like my one time where I'll like splurge on wax. For me, again, I'm just a value guy where I'm like, I will just buy the singles. I appreciate everyone for ripping the boxes, but I want to buy the singles and get the value. And
we need you to buy the singles.
Yeah, like I will buy your hits. I will buy your pink lava Will Howard for $6, please. And so, I don't really do a whole lot of ripping. I do get intrigued with just some of these other products like a Sage, like the value, like a $5 an auto with that many autos just is incredible. So I'll do some of that. Don't really do too many breaks, kind of the same thing. I'll just buy the value in the actual card and kind of chase what I want. Card shows kind of hit or miss. Like sometime I've got a kid now and that's kind of, I don't want to say taken away. It seems like a bad thing, but definitely limited my card show accessibility lately. But I love going to shows and we've got a ton in Phoenix. So sometimes it's I'll go every single week in a month and sometimes I just miss, the show. But so I would say mostly online, whether that's ComC and that's just all kind of virtual to me and just kind of playing around and then eBay with buying. So yeah, not a whole lot of wax for me, just from the value side or breaks, but then shows I love. And we've got a couple big ones coming up here in Arizona as well.
Are you going to National this year?
That's on my list. So
let's go. Come on, you gotta go.
Yeah,
we're all gonna be there.
We're
Let's
gonna
go.
be there.
So yeah, I've got a full-time corporate job and that's usually like it's the intern season for all of us. So that's like my busiest time. But coincidentally, I do have a work trip like that
in Chicago,
Monday through Wednesday, not in Chicago, but then I'm like, maybe I can just book my return flight from Vegas to Chicago Thursday. Yep. So I don't have to pay for that flight and then I'll figure out the rest. So it's been on my mind for the last week or so for sure. But I mean, also the previous years, like Atlantic City, coming from the West Coast is just feels like a night.
Yeah,
like,
see, that one was easy for me. It was a 3-hour drive.
Yeah. It was like, no, you could go to Philly and then train in, or you could go here. I'm like,
what about What about the West Coast card show, or Burbank, formerly Burbank? That's next week, I believe.
Yeah, I just saw that. I would love to go out there and make a trip for sure. That would be nice. And I really want to go to Dallas. Dallas seems
That's the one show I haven't been to. Well, I haven't been to Shipshawana either, but I've never been to Dallas.
yeah. And then I'll be going out to Shipshawana in a couple weeks here, so I'm excited for that one.
How did you and Ryan link?
That was kind of wild. Like I'd always followed him. Like I always loved his, like my card content consumption early on was like Ryan and just kind of.
So the viewers know you saw him about Card Collector too.
Yes, right. Yeah, Card Collector too. Like that was just like who I watch. He drops daily videos. We both like college. We're I think the same age and all. And just one night on Twitter, he just tweeted and he was like, "Hey, just want to shout out Gabby Card Stacks. Like I've been following him for a while and he's pretty knowledgeable and appreciate, his enthusiasm for the college market." And I was like, whoa, that just came out of nowhere to me. And then Bowman Best dropped, this was 2023. So last year, no, 2023 Bowman Best. Yeah. So 2 years ago, almost a year and a half. And then he ripped open some boxes and he was like, "Hey, can I like FaceTime you, like drop me your number? And, I want to show you all the hits." And then from there, we just kind of became close. I mean, he's a huge college guy as well. So yeah, we just become close and we're always just bouncing ideas off and talking. So yeah, really helped me out a lot and definitely appreciate that relationship for sure.
Yeah, I can
awesome.
imagine. It's he goes after a couple of my guys who I like in Terry McLaurin because he's an Ohio State guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's big. Well, his shop's right on the campus. Is that right by the campus in Ohio State, or close by it?
I think he's pretty close. That would be like the next like big local town for him. I think I need to go check it out for sure.
I know, Cary, you had some questions for you.
Oh, dude, I mean, gosh, put me on the spot. I'm trying to think of specific stuff. So, I'm really curious about like the high school ranks right now. There's people coming out like Jared Curtis. Are there any other people on your radar? Maybe they've just committed, to a college, or they're on, that are, because that's like the new frontier. That's interesting, right? We've done the college prospecting from freshman all the way up to super senior, I guess, into the NFL. Are there any like guys that are just getting signed that are, I think Bryce Underwood's still in high school. Jared Curtis is still in high school. Is there anybody else that you're paying attention to that's on your radar right now?
But also to give us your process about looking at the high school compared to college. I think that would kind of be a deeper dive. So
yeah, that would be interesting.
What we should be looking for if we want to start to dig into the high school spots.
Yeah, for sure. So, not too, I think the college or the high school stuff, it's more of a wait and see. And like, when I see them in product, then I'm like, okay, like I'm aware and I'll kind of look into them. So now going into kind of the research part, it's like, I'll look at their 24/7 sports ranking. And I'm like, all right, this kid's a high 4-star kid, got some recruiting hype. He's got offers to, in my head right now, I'm thinking of Brady Smeagol. I think he just decommitted from Florida State and he's a 4-star kid and, has a ton of like all the D1 offers you could think of. So I'll just look to see what kind of recruiting hype does he have? What's kind of his top 5 schools? Are they the big ones? Like Jared Curtis, I think is like the big chase just because he's like the number 1 quarterback. I think it's like Georgia, Ole Miss, and another school are his top 3. So we're talking, high profiles, high powered offense. It's interesting, when you look at the recruiting stuff, and then I'll look at like film and just like, do I like them as a player? Like, I'm looking at their competition and kind of the league that they play in and just all of that stuff. Just more of like the personal scouting stuff that I like to, I love watching like random high school huddles as well. Not like random, but like if I see like this kid committed to, UCLA, I'm like, oh, I got time right now. I'll throw on his huddle and see what this is all about. So I like that. And then it comes like the price value thing. It's like, all right, Brady Smeagol stuff is pretty cheap, I would say, where you could probably pick up some nice autos. And then, whoever he commits to is hopefully on the hunt for those cards. So just looking at their background and all of that, like Akili Smith Jr., another one.
That's the name for the blast of the past.
Yeah.
Bengals.
He's going to be a senior down in Lincoln, San Diego High School. and he's signed with Oregon. So it's like, all right, like he's got the name
Lineage.
with Smith Jr. and Oregon. Is he the next guy, coming up? He's a high 4-star kid. So that's a name to watch out for. And then Leaf also just signed. I always get his first name and last name. I think it's Faison Brandon. He's the number 1 kid in the 2027 class, and he's signed with committed to Tennessee. So he's going to be like I don't think they've produced any cards yet, but like a month ago or so, they announced an exclusive deal there. So they're doing a good job of landing those number 1 quarterbacks in all of these classes.
When you said that Leaf is, announcing their signing deals, where are you getting your information on that? Is it through their Twitter? Is it on a website? Like, can you maybe help educate the viewers that they want to start doing more of a deep dive into the prospecting in this? Where do you go, and maybe some of the best sites you use to look up rankings, some of the best sites you use to get your news on these players?
Yeah. So I would say when they drop the deal or announce the deals, it's usually just on their socials of Twitter and Instagram. And then some are weird. Some are like, they'll just have them on their store, like for anyone to buy at any time. And then some are like exclusive drops. And it's like, hey, it's available until sold out or, March 16th. And so, you kind of got to make a decision there. But normally they'll announce it and a lot of times it's just the announcement first. And then when the card comes out, there will be more announcements there. So usually their socials, they're pretty good about, sharing that information, and then, what the price and the print run and the style of drop varies. And then just, in terms of research, I think 24/7 Sports is the best one and just more comprehensive, just with, their recruiting rank, kind of their background. If they're like a high 4 or like a high 3-star to and above, they'll usually have like a little background synopsis of like, hey, we've evaluated this kid at this camp. He, pro comp is, Jerry Jeudy and has a lot of those, similarities. So I think they do a good job of just providing some of that context as well. And then I'll look at like Max Preps, which is like the ESPN of high school sports. And I'll just go look at their stats to go see what they're doing. So
they have good information on there.
Yeah, like for sure. And then just a general Twitter search. I mean, I love Twitter. And so like just looking that up and just seeing like, what a lot of the fan reactions are like, well, this kid, that's how I learn about kind of like depth charts where it's like, hey, Harlem Berry, the number 1 running back in the country, signed with LSU and he's in Leaf cards. And it's like, all right, like, do they think he's going to compete with Caleb Durham and all these other guys? So, I kind of try to get that sense of optimism, or maybe like, okay, like he's going to be good, like give him a year or two and he'll be the guy going forward. So that's kind of my first bit of research when it comes to high school until they get into the game. Then I'm reading, all the practice reports or whatever, fan sites, I think are a great resource to kind of gauge of, hey, this guy is coming up. So
I like the fan sites. That's nice.
I gotta call, guys. So I gotta dip real quick. I'd usually stay on as long as I possibly could, but I'm sorry, I got a 4:30 call. And it's the last second
it's
here.
A big call.
I'm sorry. If you guys are still on in like 15 minutes, I'll come back on, but I got to make this call real quick. So I'll be back, or I'll talk to you guys next. Thanks. Good talking to you, Gabe. I've never actually talked to you, so if I don't see you in a few, I'll talk to you later.
No doubt.
So Cary has a big call.
We'll tell you. We'll talk to you after the show more about it. But something just came about, and he had to go jump on a call. But I know Tim's over there ready to ask you some questions.
Okay, I'll do some rapid fire questions really fast. Okay,
right.
So you do some women's stuff too, because I seen you talk Juju and Hannah Hidalgo and stuff like that. What is your outside of college football, what are some of your other things that you find value in these other pocket niches in the hobby?
So I really like women's basketball, and it really, when I was at Arizona, the team was terrible. So me and my roommate, we would go sit courtside at like every single game. I don't think they won a conference game like in 2013. So we were just like it was just cool to like sit behind the bench and hear everything. And then Arizona kind of took off when they hired Adia Barnes. And so I was real big in the women. They were a basket away from beating Paige Beckers as a freshman in the national championship game. So that was when I first kind of knew about Paige Beckers, was kind of her freshman year.
She's another one. She was hyped. She was
Yeah.
like not six, but she was like 10 years old when her first videos started hitting the internet of her handles, because she was killing them when she was a kid too.
Yeah, no, it was like Paigey McBuckets was like the new Jimmer Fredette back then, and it was insane. And like her and I think Jalen Suggs went to the same high school, and they're like, wow, and they were both in the Final Four that year, I think, or something like that. So that definitely helped her market. And then so I've always liked the women's game, even though Arizona has always been a better men's program, and just like even in football compared to them, but. I love the women's game, and just I follow the top stars, the Juju, Hannah, Paige is kind of what I stick to, just those three big names. I'm interested to see with the new Bowman U basketball release. Hopefully they expand the women's checklist, just because a lot of those players, that's again some of their only cards. Now at least WNBA and like Select has their own product line, so it's definitely getting better for like the women's card market. But a lot of times that was gonna be Caitlin's only card for the next 2 years or so. I've had a lot of fun prospecting with that. And Hannah was probably my biggest off-season investment, and it was really, again, back to value. Like you see where Juju and Paige's prices were, and it's like I don't think Juju is incredible, but I don't think she's 8 times better than Hannah Hidalgo, when you could get Hannah Hidalgo's base card for 70 cents and Juju was $6. Like it just didn't make sense to me. So then comparing it to like color, you get her true blue Bowman first for $15 and Juju's was $100. So it was just more of a value thing. Like I think they're pretty comparable. And luckily, Hannah's been having an amazing season this year. So again, just kind of a value thing, always looking. And then just with the hype of March Madness, and then, the longevity of also Juju and Hannah have 2 more years of college. Like they're gonna continue. Like they're on pace to break Caitlin Clark's records right now. So just really insane to kind of follow that 4-year path for college basketball.
What's interesting too is with the Hannah Hidalgo, you've kind of gotten an opportunity to see Olivia play too. And she's fun to watch, like just the two of them play. For those of you that don't know, they both play for Notre Dame. It's not because I'm a Notre Dame guy, because I am a Maryland basketball fan. I'm only a Notre Dame football fan, but I've kind of grown to watch a lot of the women's basketball for Notre Dame also, because I was a huge Skylar Diggins fan back in the day. So like, I kind of have a little bit of a side crush on Notre Dame women's basketball away from my Terps basketball, but yeah, opening up the door for somebody like her too, who I think is a phenomenal player also.
Yeah. And I've read things recently, because I'm just kind of peeking in for the WNBA draft. Like if Paige wasn't this year, like Olivia would be the slam dunk #1 prospect, and it's just unfortunate for her. Paige is been the generational prospect, but behind Caitlin. So yeah, Olivia definitely a pricey entrance for sure.
So baseball, which is funny because you opened up this show and you said you kind of got into this whole thing with baseball, right? So yeah. I am a bit like obviously I'm everywhere because I'm a sports junkie, right? But baseball for me is like college is for you, right? So I find that, and I think that's kind of why I gravitate towards college too, because I feel like there's so much more range and value with cards in the college niche, because in the NFL it's like if you're not a rookie quarterback or a quarterback in general, like you just kind of get disrespected, in my opinion, in the hobby. And then in basketball, if you're not a top 5 superstar or the hot rookie, everybody else kind of gets pushed to the side. Where like when we were growing up, like if you were an all-star, your card was worth having. You know what I'm saying? And like that's kind of changed over time. But I am a huge Bowman prospect baseball, right? I love watching these guys, come up from all the way from the DSL, the Dominican and the 16 and 17-year-olds to the guys that play in college. And I kind of had to learn that whole aspect of collecting, because I didn't, coming back in, I didn't know about the difference between the beginning stages of Bowman up until their rookie cards. And so the whole first Bowman versus non-first Bowman, what do you think for people who may be watching or listening who are primary baseball people and are interested in doing it in college, to kind of give them a idea and parallel between the two? How big of a difference do you find it between first Bowmans in college, the card value versus non-first?
Yeah, so that's something that I've learned and just been studying as well. And it's interesting with the transfer portal as well now, where it's like a guy like Cam Ward, I think was like what really kind of helped solidify my thoughts, were like transfer jersey from Washington State, but it's his first logo. Then he had a second year non-first in his Washington State jersey, and then he's got his new Miami, which is where he had his Heisman run. But now just looking at everything, I think that the first does carry a lot more significant weight. And also it's an older product, so it's not as, the supply isn't nearly as out there, where, another one of those things where I'd go to Watchcount and like the cheapest Bowman first auto of Cam Ward is probably like $100, but it probably comps like 50 to 60. So it's like you just have that scarcity built in already that I really like. Compared to, a non-first as well. So I do put weight into that first, even if it's a transfer jersey. And I think, unfortunately the transfers kind of take away from the collectors. Like me personally, being an Arizona guy, like Jacob Manu was in the product now at UW. Like I still want to collect him, but I'm not like searching his parallels every day. I'm like, oh, I really need, to finish this rainbow or whatever. So I'm not super, invested in completing that rainbow. And as a collector, it kind of hurts, but from a prospecting side, I still think to lean towards that first logo.
So I just want to question off what you're just talking about. How does the NIL on Panini's website and the Topps Now factor into that? Because, now you have, yes, you're going to have the first Bowman cards come out, but, some of these players like Cooper Flag, like his first card wasn't in the product. His first card was actually in the Topps Now website. The only card you can get, and his base card was selling at one point in time for $50 to $60, just the base card, because it's the only card out there. So how does that factor in to, before the product's actually released, do you buy a lot from the websites, like when the NIL from Panini or the Topps Now?
Yeah, that's always kind of an interesting one. And I think it's always hard to evaluate just because you don't know when. I guess what I would like to know before I go into it, and just, we don't get a lot of information, but when the official product will come out, because if that's going to be, if Cooper Flag's Topps Now card came out, preseason or close to it in October, and I knew that, this product was still kind of delayed until like February or so, that you got a ton of time to sell that card before the first comes out. So sometimes, I guess it's just, if you believe in the player, and like, Cooper Flag is, one of the most hyped up prospects on the basketball scene. So, I do think that there is value going that route, but it's like, sometimes like the Juju Watkins was one that I was iffy on. It's like, that's her first USC card, but she has her first. So like, how's the market going to react to it? So kind of a gamble, because I feel like you need that numbered card in the random drop to really kind of claw your way back out. But I think it's just kind of trial and error, and just, if you believe it, then go for it. But some of those autos are sick. Like I think Cameron Skattebo had like some nasty on-card autos in his Heisman pose, and some other ones where it's like, that's just a cool looking card at $100, definitely some opportunity. So just it's a big timing thing, and still kind of fuzzy for me.
Yeah, I haven't had much luck with, I've hit a short print like a Shohei when he hit the 50-50, but other than that, like just getting the base cards of other players in there. Because you hit the parallels and hit the other stuff, it's going to be few and far between.
Yeah.
But I would say soon, it's a lot of hype with those cards. As soon as those cards are dropping, yes, you do have a small window, but then Topps does come right behind them and then release another one. Like, oh, he had a 50-point game. Oh, now we're gonna do the 50-point game card. And then hey, he had a 20 and 20. Oh, we're gonna do a 20 and 20 card. And you're like, so I think you have to be very careful. So I was just curious on how you felt about that. But I know Tim, you had more questions.
You mentioned Skattebo. We gotta talk a little bit about Cameron Skattebo, because he was a guy that was on my radar, and I do buy in breaks. I'm not like a crazy break guy, but I have a few people that I break with. And I noticed that Arizona State was dirt cheap. and I was getting into like multi-box breaks for like $10 on Arizona
What was the time
State.
frame though when it was dirt cheap? Or was it?
I mean,
early in
this
the
is
year?
it was right, but it was before the playoff run.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
he still was. I mean, maybe not to everybody, but I felt like he was a kind of a household name. You know, it was a weird situation too because Arizona State preseason was picked to finish last in that conference.
Yeah.
You know, so like I guess that kind of was a little bit to it, but. What are your thoughts on him and his value on because that's his first, but he's going to be going into the draft right now. What do you think about those sort of situations and him specifically?
Yeah, so I love him as a player, and again, I just love like the transfer portal. Like the transfer portal and all of that is like where you really learn about teams and players and like like last year, like I was really adamant that Florida State was not going to be good. Like they lost 11 guys to the NFL, and what they brought in with the portal was not even comparable.
DJ was not a good guy.
Yeah, so it's like stuff like that. Like I love just seeing the pieces that they bring in and kind of evaluating that. So when he came in from Sac State, I was like, this kid's an FCS All-American and kind of a bowling ball guy. And I mean, last year I think they went 3-9. Was the only bright spot. And when they played Arizona last year, like he was a Wildcat quarterback. He was like they were just running the offense through him. Like this kid, and it was terrifying at the time. I think he had a pretty good game the week before, and it was like me and my friends were like, he's going to go off for 250 yards on us and just carry. Like it's going to be our great season, their terrible season, and they're going to beat us, and it's going to be tough. So I really like him and wish that Bowman released a little bit earlier because I would have definitely gone all in on a lot of that. And I know there was like the Tops conference where they were like, it's scheduled for September. And then just didn't come out till November. From my understanding, it's just been a challenge with all of these schools, and some schools are better than others at getting their guys to sign and send the product back. And, you're just waiting on a lot of different autos. And so that's been the challenge for a lot of delays. And I think that's why like you had Bowman U, then like Best and Sapphire all came out in like a month-long span.
Yeah.
So they were just kind of waiting on those. That's at least my understanding. But so yeah, Skattebo, I love him as a player, just an absolute tank bowling ball type guy. And just, he's going to give you everything he has. He's a really fun player to watch. So maybe I'm an Ashton Jeanty hater, but like Cam Skattebo's season to me in at least the Power 4 conference was more impressive than Ashton Jeanty. Like I'm like, hot take maybe, but like put Jeanty on Arizona State, and I don't think like maybe it's comparable, but like what Cam Skattebo did, like I thought he was like the best player in college football this year. Like he single-handedly, in my opinion, carried Arizona State. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But I mean, you just couldn't stop him, and it was very similar to Jeanty, but just at a Power 4 level.
So I pulled the superfractor of Jeanty, the 101 Ramblin' Man.
Wow.
Right? And I pulled out of the hobby box.
Auto too.
Yeah. 101 superfractor auto. As soon as I pulled it, I sleeved it right up. I sent the Golden Auction House, and it came back a PSA 8. So yeah, autograph got a 10. So I know something you talk about in your videos, and you mentioned before about all the production. I mean, you mentioned about the delay in the production, but man, I just feel like this year had so many issues with the cards. And I know it's something you've been talking about that you want to do more grading this year.
Yeah.
So why don't you touch base kind of, your thought process on grading, what you're actually doing, but taking stuff from the bargain box or buying these value cards and going through the whole grading process. Also I know you had some issues with some of the cards you got with Bowman too. So maybe do a little deep dive on that for us.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely just a learning process. And for me, a lot of people are always like, Gabby, why don't you grade? Like, you're so early on these guys. Like, it's not a matter of like, oh, well, I get them back in time from PSA, and I know that can kind of be a drawn out process, but there is a lot of truth to it where it's like, I'm buying guys for the 2026 draft right now, like I'm looking at 2027 to see what's going on. So, definitely something that I think I just maybe got content with just like, oh, let me just get the quick flip, or like I'm just cool storing it or whatever. But now just trying to kind of scale everything up. I want to get more into grading. So yeah, just inspecting cards, and yeah, just with Bowman, it has been,
difficult.
it's been very discouraging, I guess, because I'm like, dude, like I see people get gems on like Paul Skeen gold autos, and I'm like, I can't get a beast GT for my life for a 10, like there's a flaw in everything. So that kind of like, and then everyone's like, no, it's a tough set to grade. So again, been frustrating for sure, and just a learning experience. And I just realized you kind of have to just submit just to learn and be like, all right, like, is this cool? Like, would it still slide by? Does it drop it down a full grade or whatever? So yeah, just been buying, again, for the draft, for the season, just guys that, especially you look at like the draft, like Bo Nix base cards, we're doing $50, $60, $70 as a gem on draft night. So it's like, if you can get 10 to 20 that you feel good about sending off, your gems will pay for the nines, and even your nines might be profitable at that point. So trying to get into just, I guess, out of my comfort zone, I guess, and into that grading scene to see what's going on and what kind of, volume I can do there. But just now it's gotten to a point where like I'll at least give every card a shot that like before I would never even look and think to grade. And I was like, I'll look at every card and be like, okay, I'm not discouraged by the way this looks. So then I'll put it to the side and I won't list, or try to, be good about, sending it off or getting it reviewed or anything like that.
I've done a lot of grading over the years, and just not just, I've done sports cards, but I've done like tons of comic books, video games, VHS. I do all the collectible markets. And I always tell people the biggest piece of advice I give to people is, one is just like you said, you just need to, you work on the rule of averages. So you just don't, first time you do grading, I always recommend sending like maybe 5 or 10 as a sample size, but write down any flaws you see or what you think personally that card's going to get graded at, because when you do get those cards back, you can actually compare to what you originally thought. Then okay, well, I thought these are all going to get, I thought this one get 9, I thought these one get 10, and then come back a 4, 5, and 6. Well, then hey, you need to sit down and do more researching. All right, but if they're coming back and you're pretty much like you're getting the 9s and 10s, and you're seeing it. Oh, okay, I thought it was a 10 and got a 9. Okay, you're right on point there. You just might have missed something. So it's actually really good. Oh. There we go.
1 sec.
So it is good. Oh, we got an echo. All right. So it is really good that when you are able to do those sample sizes, but send in a massive batch in there, it's a good way to learn, man. It's a good way to do it. And I will say it's something I plan on getting more into this year is, especially we're getting this stuff so cheap. And I even thought about going, I know you went through PSA, you did the whole GameStop experience before. I thought going and trying a little bit more SGC, just the fact it's going to be a little cheaper. I know they do hold similar value, not quite PSA. So I'm going to dabble a little bit more of that as well this year. Cary, nice to see you back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, guys. Sorry about that.
You guys don't know this is American Arbitrage Cards. He has a small YouTube channel. If you guys ever seen him, so we were talking about replacing you actually. So
nice.
Gaby's gonna join us now for
there we go, man. So it's been a good run. I lasted 4 or 5 episodes.
If you want to enter the transfer portal, you can do so. But so I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm pretty sure from what I received, you were a little disappointed with the Bowman's Best checklist. Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, you know what I'm saying? But what were and how fast it came out after that? Because for those of us that do baseball, I love Bowman's Best because it's a lot cheaper than, the Bowman stuff. But the value on the resale market, unless it's like, a big name out of 50, or lower autos, those sort of things kind of have a little bit more value. Nothing compared to the Bowman Chromes, Bowman Drafts, and Bowman's. But what is your thought process on that Bowman to Bowman's Best? And I am a huge Sapphire guy. So, like, to me, I will pick up almost any first Sapphire that I find because I feel like it's going to have resale value at any point if they do anything. So what are your thoughts on that to kind of guide people a little bit from the Bowman U to Bowman's Best to to Bowman Sapphire?
Yeah. So yeah, I was a little disappointed with the checklist just because it was basic. Well, one, I think a little bit of the fatigue, like the Bowman U came out, I think like the week before Thanksgiving. And then Bowman U like pre-orders came out like 2 weeks before Christmas and then got shipped out like a couple days after, or maybe before Christmas. So just a lot of fatigue where it's like, we haven't even like, if I remember correctly, 7-day auctions from Bowman U weren't even done by the time they dropped the pre-order of Bowman U. So like we haven't even seen the market like settle on a week of product before this product came out. And I just think probably could have pushed it out. And then in terms of the checklist, it was basically the same exact checklist. Granted, it has kind of been that case last 2 years, but at least last year they added Nico Iamaleava, which was like a huge chase. Didn't even have autos, but at least his color, like his yellow color, was like $100 back then. So, just added a little bit more. And then I know people love like the dual and triple and quad autos and things like that. I love Bowman best from like a collector standpoint, because like you said, it is just, I can get a Noah Fafita rainbow for, or, I'm not a true rainbow. Like I don't have a desire to chase the 101, but if I can complete up to like red or to 10, and do it for like $50 all in, I'm like, hey, I'm pretty happy with that binder. I'm a big binder guy. So I like filling out the binder that way. But yeah, for me, I guess not my beef with best, but I think the like we said, the first carries significant weight. And so it'll lag behind that a little bit. So, granted, once you get to the top names, then, they're going to carry some weight on their own, but just from a value perspective. And then I found it harder to sell. Like sometimes, like I think before the granted transfer jersey, but before the national championship, you get Riley Leonard gold in his Duke jersey for like $8, and it's like that, tremendous value, but then it's like, it's been sitting there all this time. Like how desirable is it? At least from the college market. For the Bowman baseball, it could be a lot stronger. And then Sapphire, I love Sapphire. Sapphire is like one of my favorite products. I think like it's cool because all the base cards have value. Like they're all like, if you ever find them in like a 25-50 cent bin, like I would buy them all. Like every base card has like a floor of like $1 or $2 for most guys. And, even just a base card, Tetro McMillan right now, it's like $8. And like, you could probably find that in a dollar bin and a bunch of other players. It's not just him. So I love Sapphire. I just like the cracked ice of like the design in the card, and then just the value. Like every base card is at least a value, and it's a more premium product. It's a little bit more expensive, maybe a little bit more risk, I guess, but with that price. But I love, if you're going to grind out like a hobby box, like I love going the Sapphire route, because you get, a premium
for your buck.
Yeah, at a decent price.
Now, is there another release? Are they going to be doing a Bowman Inception for college?
They haven't done it they did it for the Juju Watkins, Wemby, Caitlin Clark. So I guess 2 years ago, but they didn't release it last year. So I don't know if they just did a one and done for that. And that was a multi-year, like that was women's basketball, like men's basketball and college football in 1 year. And the hobby boxes for that is pretty it's like $130. It's very much like a feaster. Like you're getting either a dollar auto, but you're chasing the Wemby, like a Caitlin Clark, I think does over 500, and then a Juju auto. So, that one's an interesting product, but they haven't released it. So I don't know. But then at like the Topps Industry Conference, like a year ago, they were saying like they want to do like a high end, like National Treasures type. I forgot what it was called, but no word on that. So that'll be interesting to see if they ever do something like that.
So if someone wanted to get into college sports, what would you rank the products that you'd recommend them buying then? Would it be Bowman U Chrome first? Would you best like down the list? Or?
Yeah, that it's an interesting question. And I think there's kind of several ways that you like, if you're brand new, I don't hate diving into best just because of the value. And it's like, hey, you could probably pick up, and that's what I did with Bowman U basketball. When I kind of wanted to learn the men's market, at least, like I just bought lots at card shit. Like they were color for 25-50 cents. I'm just going to learn the checklist this way. And I like doing the homework and the research of like, all right, this guy, 7 points at USC, a couple rebounds, whatever. So, I think just buying up cheap color lots in your value bins and such, I think is a great way. So, I don't hate it if you go the best route and just go for the value and just, hey, you're getting cheap color at $1 a piece and grind it out for $2-3 and learn that way on what players sell and don't sell. And then, chase after their first. I think that's a great way if you're on a budget. But yeah, I mean, I think the first definitely carries some weight where it's like, all right, I think, just look at that checklist, kind of look at prices of kind of, run through the checklist, kind of rank them all and see where they are and look at their stats and other information and kind of go from there and just start watching and paying attention to it.
Cary, you got any questions, man? I know you left. Come back.
Yeah, no, I just got through. No, I just got thrown right back. I was just thinking about like if there was room for a higher, like I wonder how much Topps is going to really dive into the college market. Are they going to only stick with the Bowman best? Because there probably is, like you're saying, they're talking about it. There is some room for them to get into the high end stuff. I was honestly, as he was talking, I was thinking about like some of the plays that I've basically been put on to from Gabe. Like I just sold a couple Brendan Sorsbys, for example. I know he's somebody that you talk a lot about on your channel. I mean, and they were polar opposites. In I think they were both quality cards, but one was a red shimmer to 5, Bowman U, color match. So that was a dope card. Not autographed though, just the base. And the other was just a straight up leaf, weird like lime ice card auto. And it sold. And I made a profit on both those. So there's, I don't have a particular question, but I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking a lot about like all the people, like this is one of my favorite things about sports cards in general, like picking and hunting for sports cards, and why I'm so interested in the college market and even like beyond is there's just so much to learn right now. And if you are educated, which is one thing Gabe is he is digging in for the info. It inspires me to do it more myself, because there are so many bargain box plays. And I go to my local shop here. You've been there, Rod, K&T. And I know they have boxes of Leaf there. And I find Leaf stuff in their bargain boxes all the time. So I imagine they're opening it and throwing a lot of it just in the bargain boxes because maybe they're just looking for the top recruits. And there's been a lot of plays for me, like Pat Bryant you were talking about earlier. I have several Leaf Pat Bryant autos that I've gotten for next to nothing, just in bargain boxes, just from listening to you and others in the field. So I'm just really excited about this new space opening up, being beyond just the 2 months before the NFL product comes out with Sage. Like we can play around in college. And if you become an expert now, I think there's a lot of room to make some great decisions. It's not just investing. I'm not so much of an investor as I am somebody who loves to find a card that's worth $1 right now that I could sell for 3 or 4. Also that has a chance to go even higher. You know what I mean? That's my play. I love that range. So like even worst case scenario, I'll make a little bit of money or I'll get my money back at least. And best case, I guess the moon, right?
The moon it is. Listen,
the moon.
You're our first guest ever on this
ever.
podcast. You're going to be our first guest, okay? So you're going to go down into the No Bangers Hall of Fame. And I guess we have to ask, right? I'm a very animated person, if you haven't noticed that by now over this last hour and 42 minutes and 5 seconds. But what is this is going to be the question that everybody is going to want to know. What is your best find and flip?
Ooh, wow. Of just like all time would like, or just,
well, you could give us an all timer, and then you can give us like, your favorite, and then you could give us like just a football one. I'll give us 3 if you got 3.
My best, like just from a percentage perspective was, and this, gosh, I don't know, 2021 or 2, I guess. It was a Kyle Trask Optic Red Stars. I found that for $2 in a little value bin, and his market I was thinking about this the other day. His market must have been hot at that point, or I don't know what the speculation was, but I sold it for $110 like within the week. So that's like my biggest flip, I would say. And then one of my more recent ones from like a college perspective, I would say would probably be Shadur Sanders green auto. I bought in pretty early. I think I bought it for like $150. And then I, again, was not a grader, but I remember I took it to a show and someone was like, "Oh, you got Shadur?" And then I was like, "Yeah, I've got this one." And then they look at it and they're like, "Yeah, I would send this in. This looks like a gem." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I would have never even thought to grade it." Graded it. And then got a gem, and then I just held it and sold it for $650 probably a month or 2 ago. So that was probably my biggest spread.
Nice.
In total.
Well done.
Excellent. Yeah, Tim just had a big find. We talked about in the previous weeks. He just pulled a $300 card out of the bargain boxes.
Yeah, so Zaire
Nice.
Hope, who's a big prospect for the Dodgers, I found one of the Pearl Pack super short print of his in a $2 box. So it's up
Wow.
right now for $350. It's the only one listed right now too. There's none other ones listed.
That's awesome,
Wow.
man. Well, we've been talking for an hour and 45. I'm sure Gabe has plenty of content to be putting out here, so I don't want to hold him up any longer.
We got to
but,
see the daily vids, man.
Yeah, so if there's no daily vid today, we apologize because it's on us for keeping them here so long, but we do appreciate you here. Any final questions, any final words here for him, Cary? I'll start with you.
Nah, man, I just appreciate you spending some time with us, man. Seriously, I'd say, like, if I were to say, like, I feel like you're a lot of favorite, you know, card content creators.
Favorite
You're the
card content
creator.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I think. There's a lot of people that I talk to that just love what you're doing, man.
Yeah.
You do the deep dives, and you're probably my favorite channel to watch, or at least in the top 2 or 3. So I appreciate all the content you're putting out, and I highly recommend, if you like my content or Rod's or Tim's, to check out Gabe's stuff, because it's, you know, it influences it informs me a lot in what to look out for in bins and just in general. So thank you, man, for coming on. I appreciate you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll double down on that too. Like for me, I'm a big community guy. So like I love any opportunity. I love to have to give other people, like I'd love to do that. So like I literally was at the card show on Saturday, and this guy was telling me, he was like, you know, he saw I was decked out in my Notre Dame gear, and he was like, man, I went hard in on Riley Leonard, but like, you know, all the Duke stuff, it didn't transfer to Notre Dame. I was like, man, you know what? I got a guy you can watch. And I immediately like sent him to you. I was like, you just sit down, watch this guy. Like he's the best at what he does. And I think that that's huge in our community, because so much of YouTube and card hobby content creation can be either like super negative or way out of price range for the average individual. And I think that you fall into what we do, in that, you know, you're very approachable, digestible, like everything that you do seems like a normal person, you know. And I think that's super important to spread that positivity vibe without being like, you know, pushing other agendas. And I think we're very fortunate to have you on as our first guest. And
Yeah,
make
if
sure
you
you guys
want-
follow him on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's where I love him.
If you want content about cards, which we don't always get in this space, if you want card content, Gabe's your guy, because he's going to give you just straight up all killer, no filler. You know what I mean?
I like
And I'm
that.
gonna triple down on that, man. I mean, I'm gonna say he's one of my
Let's
favorite
praise
things to watch.
praise Gabe time. Let's do it.
We'll go back
Listen,
around
Cary-
again and do it
Hold
one
on.
more time.
2 times.
So I got back in the I took a 20-year break. I got back in the hobby in the last 2 years. Cary turned me on your channel, and I literally sat the first time I saw your stuff, I sat there for literally, I probably put 40 hours in, just watched it every single day, because when I'm packing up my orders, I have it in the background. I just have it on there because you provided such good content. And then from watching you, I started watching all the mock drafts online. I started just going down that rabbit hole, because one of the biggest things that we do here is you know, we like to pay for an education. Education is we like to continue to learn. The more we learn, the more power we have when it comes to shows, buying online, everything else. But also too, like Tim hit the nail on the head. What you do is very relatable. You know, we got tired. The whole purpose of us starting this podcast is we get tired of watching people spend $50,000 in 8 hours at a card show. You know, no normal person can't do that. We want to put out content for people that are digging through those nickels and dimes, them turning
Maybe
those
they got
into-
$20 to spend at the card show,
right.
and
And
we
so
could help, maybe.
we found there's a huge gap in the market. It's either I hate what's going on right now, or I got $20,000 to spend. There's nothing for the average working man, the 9-to-5 guy who maybe has $200 a month to buy a box of cards or go through a card show and spend on what he wants. So when we came across your content, it hit the nail right in the head for us, and it was literally going right down the NCAA college football hole, which is something I personally love tremendously. So thank you for everything you do. We do appreciate it. I do have one question though for you before we let you go here. Have you ever done any live selling?
So I did do Whatnot. Gosh, I would say it was probably before last season. And for me, I mean, it was fine, but I am more of I'm going to buy from the card show and just list it and forget it. And then when sales come in, then I'll kind of let it trickle in. So I mean, that was pretty early on in kind of, I guess, halfway point now to my card journey. I never really thought about it after, but yeah, I've just mostly been all right, let me, grab this stack of cards here. I'm going to take all my photos, list it. And then when it sells, it sells. So yeah, live selling, haven't given it too much thought, honestly. In the recent.
I would say it's something you should consider in again in the future, because I think you can add a lot of value to your audience. Especially
we'll drag you in. We'll
you
drag
literally
you in.
educate the audience.
We're all big into it.
So and hey, listen, we do have we launched a new site last week. It's called Dibit Cards. We're really focused on the community aspect, but man, it's something we love to have you come over there. Maybe Cary we can partner up with you, do a stream with his audience and stuff like that. If something you ever think about. So keep that in mind.
We would love to just even if
man.
it's just coming on and talking to people and educating them, whether you're selling cards or not. I think it'd be awesome.
I forgot one thing, and I'll just say it because I wanted to talk to you about it, and I forgot to ask you about it. But go watch the video because I've been trying to digest the eBay bulk listing aspect, and I keep fighting it because I'm doing it, and then I'm like, but he does it, and it looks so easy. And I do it, and it doesn't look so easy. But if you guys want to learn about that, he has some good content on that, so make sure you guys check that out as well. That's the last thing I promise. I'm done talking.
All right. So, well, we appreciate you being here. I'm going to put his links down in the top of the description here, guys. So you guys please go click on, give him a follow. He literally took time out of his day to be here with us, which we appreciate tremendously. And we have a final send off here, Gabe. You got to jump in.
You're the first person to do it with us.
You got to jump in.
Do you know what to do here?
No.
Okay. All right. You got to
put our hands in.
All right. No bangers on 3. 1, 2, 3. No bangers!
No bangers! Oh man, it's ridiculous. I love it.